What's up, everyone? What's up? Welcome to Accountability with Nicole, or Nicole's Accountability. What's up, everybody? I hope you guys are excited as I am to have Sean on. This is the second time that I'll be having Sean on. He has came on before and shared his story. In today's video, I want to get more into how he got sober and what he's doing now in his recovery. I'm going to link our first interview together so you guys can see his first interview that he did with me, because in that interview, we talk all about his drug use. And so in today's video, we'll touch a little bit on the drug use, but I really want to talk more about like how he's staying sober and what his life is like now that he's in recovery. For those of you guys that don't know, today's a big day. Today we are going to take Nate to meet his teacher, and he's super excited about that. I'm excited. I'm excited to meet his teacher. I'm looking forward to meeting his teacher. Hopefully it's a teacher that, is like passionate about her job, because no offense to his teacher he had last year, but last year his teacher was just a little bit older and she wasn't as like passionate about her job. And so I don't feel like he really got the best schooling that he could have got last year. So if you guys don't mind, help me share this video while we wait for Sean to get here. He should be here momentarily. Sean has been making videos about the Lima Dresvama, I don't know how to say her last name, Lima Takali, that girl, and the Bam Margera situation. So for those of you guys that don't know what I'm talking about, when you see his channel, it's called Sober_Thoughts. You'll see the videos that he's been making lately, and they're really, really interesting, and I think you guys will like them. If you like BJ Investigates, you'll like what he's talking about in these videos. But you guys know, here on this channel, we support all pathways to recovery. We don't judge you. I'm on Suboxone personally. I have friends that utilize Kratom, and then I have other friends that are that utilize cannabis in their recovery. And so, whatever you're doing to improve your life, okay, whatever you're doing to improve your life and be a better person, okay, we support you. We're not going to judge you because you recover differently than us. Okay? I think that's really important for everybody to understand, because it's just stupid to judge people because their recovery is different than yours. It's just stupid. Oh, and let me not forget to introduce everyone who's new here. This is, excuse me, come here, mister. Oh, this is my co-host. Hey, why do you act? I got you out of your little skit. This is my co-host, Quito. Okay, he holds down the fort during the live streams. He lays in the back there and keeps an eye on us and makes sure that we're all staying sober and doing the right thing, huh? Paco the sober dog. So yeah, he holds it down for us and keeps it down, keeps pillows held down. So get back on your throne, Paco the sober dog. Oh, there you go. There we go. Okay, let me shut my door so my husband and my son don't get too loud, and then we'll get Sean on here. Okay. Paco the sober dog. Okay, here we go. I'm such a nerd. Okay, let's do this. Hey, Sean.
What's up?
What's up? Can you hear me good?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, cool. All right. So I was talking to everybody and I was telling them that I had you on my channel before, and I'm going to link that because you know what I did with all my videos before I lost that channel was I had one of my really good friends. She's a follower of mine. Her name is Mercedes. She has converted all my videos to podcasts. So I have your video re-uploaded on this channel and I have it on my podcast. So what I want to do today is I would like for you to briefly share with us how your addiction started and what how bad it got. But then what I really want you to focus on sharing with us is what you're doing now to stay sober. The things that you're doing, like if you're working out, if you take MAT, if you're doing therapy and all that kind of stuff. So I'm just going to let you start out. And if I'm not looking at you when you're sharing, please don't take offense to it, because I'm going to be sharing your channel and all the stuff on the comment section while people come in and listen. Okay.
I am incredibly offended. Right
I
off
know
the bat.
you would be.
You must stare at me the whole time. No, that's okay.
Okay, cool. You got the floor. I'm going to be quiet.
Okay. Yeah. So, how did my addiction start? Well, it started with OxyContin. And I was quite a bit younger than a lot of people that I know when I first got started. I got started at 15. I was a sophomore in high school, and one of my best friends was a senior, and he was into doing oxys, but not like super heavy. I would say that he wasn't even dependent on them at the time. I think he was just kind of using them to get high, obviously. And where I went to school in a really, really big school, in high school anyways, in Washington State. And at that time in 2010, when I was 15 years old, OxyContin, like the 80s and the 40s and all that stuff, were everywhere. And so, I think it was like one day I went to a party with him, and afterwards he and I like shared an 80. And from there it kind of, grew and grew until about 2012, I think it was, when, at least in Washington State, you pretty much couldn't get the OC80s anymore. You couldn't get real OC at all. In fact, I even a couple of times bought drywall that was wrapped in like the blue time release. And
Damn! I've been there though.
People got real shady, and everybody started like robbing each other and stuff. And so I actually got sober for a little bit there using Suboxone. But the problem was, so I got sober, I think at like 17, and I stayed sober until I was 19. But the problem is I was, buying Suboxone illicitly. And so it didn't quite work out. I didn't really know what I was doing.
Can we pause for a second
Yeah.
and talk about buying Suboxone off the streets? So I want everybody to understand that, like, we've all been there. I've done the same thing where I bought it off the street, and I was doing it as a means to an end because I wanted to get sober and I wanted to change my life. But I ran into situations. Sean, share with us how that didn't work out for you and why you don't do that anymore.
Great question. This is why I like doing these with you, because you ask really good questions. So the reason it didn't work out is because I couldn't get, and I'm not saying that that can't work out, but the reason it didn't work out for me, and the reason why, obviously, I think going through the legal route is probably the most ideal situation. For me, I couldn't always have access to it. So like, I'm working with somebody, if you want to call it that, or I'm acquiring these things through somebody that doesn't have, a like proper channel themselves. And so there would be days where I couldn't get it. There would be days where, like I just would maybe even like lose it. Like maybe I put it in my wallet or something and it fell out, or maybe I had it in my shorts pocket and it fell out. There'd be days where I'd call the guy up and he'd be like, "Oh yeah, I got you, come through." And he had 2 to sell me, and then it's like, he's not answering the phone again for another 3 weeks. So that's one part of it. The other part of it is, back then the internet was definitely a thing, but, smartphones are really just starting to become a thing. And so a lot of the information that you'd get about dosing and stuff like that would be off of forums, and they wouldn't be accurate or individual specific. So it made it kind of rough to know exactly how much to take.
Yeah, it's hard because you're like trying to manage yourself. And don't get me wrong, guys, there's some shitty ass fucking Suboxone doctors out there that you'd be better off on your own anyway. But like, that's why in that situation, if you have a shitty doctor or you have a doctor that doesn't understand Suboxone that well, is to advocate for yourself and find another doctor and get out there and get out in front of it, so that way you can get good help for you. And that's what me and my husband were doing the same thing. And that's why I wanted you to talk about it, because I had a lot of people. We had a girl come in the live just probably about a month or so ago, and she was telling us that she was buying subs, and she got offended because I told her that you shouldn't do that. You need to get yourself a legal prescription. And it wasn't because I don't think I'm not saying that you're not in recovery, you're not sober because you're taking Suboxone off the street. I just want you to do it the safest way possible, so that way you could be in the best situation. I don't want you to get pulled over and not have a prescription for your Suboxone. It could be a simple traffic stop because you got your tags expired or you ran a red light by accident. And now look, oh no, I don't have a prescription for this narcotic medication, and now I'm going to jail, you know?
Yeah, that's another thing too that I didn't even bring up, but like, especially, you know, certain parts of the country, like you get caught with that without a prescription, and it's gonna look just like you had been caught with, you know, something potentially worse. I mean,
right.
The reality is it's a life-saving medication, and you know, if you do, at least in my opinion, I know there's like differing opinions on this, but in my opinion, if you have an opioid tolerance, like if you have opioid use disorder and you're taking Suboxone, there's a very, very small likelihood that you would be getting like quote unquote high off of it. But I think that that doesn't matter. If you don't have a prescription, they're not going to look at it like that. They're not going to look at it on like an individual specific basis. They're going to just say, well, you were caught with this narcotic and you didn't have a prescription, and, you know, potentially lock you up. So,
yeah. And that's why I wanted you to touch on that, because there's nothing to be ashamed of if that's the situation that you found yourself in. But as you get into your recovery and as your recovery journey progresses, you want to move forward and grow in your recovery. And that's just a behavior that you leave behind in the past, I believe.
Yeah, actually, that's true too. There's a good parallel there, because, you know, if you're still having to go and get it through an illicit source, you know, that is kind of like, you know, you talk about people, places, and things in recovery. Well, that's one of those like potentially people and things and or places if you're having to go and meet this person. And usually, at least in my experience, you know, people that deal in illicit things tend to also deal in other illicit things.
Yeah.
You know? And so it's like, you know,
you could be having a bad day that day and have like dude, I cannot tell you how many times that I've had days where I thought it'd be nice to have a Xanax bar. It'd be nice to have a little meth, just a little, so I can get all these dishes washed and all these laundry done and all the things I need to do. And I could just imagine if I had to buy Suboxone from a dealer and go by his house and he could just have that little I needed, you know, I would not have 8 years sober.
No, me neither. I would not at all. I think, you know, definitely going the legal route, best case scenario, in my opinion. And I think that you avoid a lot of those obstacles by doing that. But yeah.
Okay. I didn't mean to hang you up on that part of your story, but you were telling us that you had tried that and it didn't work out. So keep going and tell me some more.
Yeah. So, this is actually kind of a funny story. So I went to, you know, like I said, I got sober, and that was around, I think, 17 years old, and it lasted until I was about 19. But when I was 18, I thought, you know what I'm going to do? You know, what would be great for me, this like recovering addict who had already been using for like 2 years. I should go to college and I should start going to a bunch of college parties. So that's what I decided to do. And, you know, looking back on that, it's like hindsight's 2020, wasted a whole ton of money that first year, because I ended up from that university dropping out. And but I actually went to a party, and I was I think I was 19, and I was at my buddy's house. It was like right off campus, and I went to this party, and there's all these rooms in this house. I think it was like him and like 4 other people renting like a 5-bedroom house. It was like a huge house. And so I walk in, and, you know, I'm doing whatever, and I end up going down to the basement for some reason. I don't know why I was going down there. And I go down to the basement, and I open up the door, and I look inside, and there is this dude who I don't recognize, which was kind of weird because I thought that I had known most of the people there. but I saw that he was just like wrapped in a blanket and shaking. And so I kind of like walked over because I thought maybe he had like alcohol poisoning or something was going on. And I walk over, and before I can like get to him, there's a coffee table that I have to kind of like move because he's got the coffee table all pulled up to the couch. And on the coffee table, there's like 4 Suboxone wrappers. And so I obviously knew what Suboxone was. So I asked him, I was like, hey man, what's going on? Like, what, you all right? Like what's happening? And we kind of got to talking and all this stuff. It turned out he was like a friend of one of my friends, and my buddy was like putting him up so that he could go through withdrawal. But, you know, that was all it took, was for me to make this connection with this person. And then for the next, you know, I think he and I for like the next 6 months were just up in Portland, Oregon, doing, you know, harder stuff, doing H and stuff like that. And that's kind of how I got into H, and then was doing that. And then in and out of methadone clinics for years. And
tell me a little bit real quickly how your experience was with methadone, and why didn't it work for you versus another route of recovery.
Okay, so sorry, I kind of go on about this one forever because I know,
me too. We have a similar experience.
Yeah,
but it's okay. Go ahead.
Okay. So the thing is with me, I went to, and I want to preface this with, I think methadone probably saved my life. I think that there was a point in time where getting on methadone saved me from a potentially much darker path that I would have gone down.
Oh, hell yeah.
You know, but what I'll say is that especially up in Portland, the methadone clinics are, you know, they're where everybody congregates. And on top of that, there's a lot of people who are there for recovery. And there's also a lot of people who are maybe earlier in recovery that, you know, are kind of taking the methadone so that they can, you know, kind of stave off their withdrawal symptoms so they can go do their other stuff throughout the day. And you know what I'm kind of getting at probably. And for me, being in that environment, I just couldn't break away from it. It was almost like it introduced me to a lot of people and an entire subculture that I didn't know about until I got on methadone. And so for me, it ended up not sort of fully working. I wasn't able to kind of taper off of it and do like the full course of getting on it, being on maintenance, and then tapering off, if that makes sense.
What did you have? Was it hard? The reason why it was hard for me, one, is because I was illegally obtaining it from my husband. I was taking his methadone.
Gotcha.
So I already started out on the wrong pathway. But you were going to the clinic and getting it prescribed to you, correct?
I was, yes.
And what was going there, and this is what I've heard from a lot of other people, is that their experience at the clinic is just so negative. And a lot, especially some places like it's some inner city clinics that are like methadone mile, right?
Yeah.
Where people are in active use on the side of the road, falling asleep and nodding out. And that's where you have to go every day to get this medication to help you stay sober. Like that's got to be like so fucking hard to do.
Yeah, so that's actually exactly, at least through my experience, that is what you just described is a very good representation of the methadone clinics in Portland. But what's interesting about Portland is that, and I don't know if it's like this in the rest of the country because I've only been on methadone in Portland, and then I did go to a couple methadone clinics in California on like a transfer thing once, but I don't really have a lot of experience with the ones in California. But the ones in Portland, you don't actually need to be like any kind of like a medical professional to open one of these clinics. So what was really interesting is a lot of these clinics, you had kind of like two different styles of clinics up here. You've got clinics that are owned and operated by the state, and then you've got private clinics that are owned and operated by, you know, just somebody that had enough money to start the clinic and can kind of do that. So
doctors work there, or do they have doctors that work there?
Yes, they've got doctors who work there. I actually have an interesting story about some of the doctors too. I actually loved a lot of the doctors that I worked with at those methadone clinics, but you know, anyways, I'll get into that later.
All
But the owners of these clinics, the one that I spent the majority of my time at, what's interesting is there was actually this guy who was like, he was a huge 12 stepper, right? He had never been into drugs per se, but he had been like a hardcore alcoholic. And I don't remember where he like got his degree from or anything, and I actually really liked this guy. But the dude would pull up to the clinic every day. He had his office there. He wouldn't really interact with a lot of the patients, but for whatever reason, he kept his office there. And the dude would pull up to the clinic every day in like, he had like 3 different like supercars. He had like a Mercedes AMG and like a McLaren and all, like, the dude was just like balling out. And what was funny is, so he wouldn't really interact with us very much, but if you got in like big trouble, like if you did something on the premises that, you know, potentially was going to get you not just kicked out. They had, one thing I did appreciate about them is they didn't really call the police a lot because they understood the crowd that they were kind of dealing with. But, you know, if you did something like messed up, you'd have to go sit in his office and get like a stern talking to from him. And I always just felt like it was kind of weird being in that environment, you know, just talking to this guy. He's just like a businessman and not, you know, anyways. So yeah, they're interesting up in Portland. They're real interesting.
You know, Dr. B, we have the private practice in Santa Ana, but he also runs a methadone clinic in Hollywood.
Okay.
And, he is basically the doctor over the clinic. So like if you're having like major med changes or you come in off the street and they have, they're struggling to figure out how to help you, the nurses and stuff, then they call Dr. B, Dr. B, come out here and help with so-and-so. And so, I always used to be so hard against methadone. Like I was such a biased person and I was against it because I abused it so badly. But then I talked to Dr. B and I went on TikTok. TikTok has helped me so much in the 3 years that I've been on that platform because it's like a younger generation of people that are like more open-minded and they helped me to be more open-minded. And so I was watching a lot of the girls there that have used methadone and gotten successful and got, either use it still or are off of it and have tapered off. And they helped me understand just because I had a bad experience with it doesn't mean that everybody's having a bad experience. It's so easy to put your experience onto somebody else, not meaning to, but because I had such a bad experience, I worry that everybody else will have the same experience as me, Yeah.
Yeah. I think, I would also agree that my opinions have sort of shifted a little bit from being on there. And I think what it boils down to for me is, I'll be the first one to admit, even though I was on it with a prescription, I was going through legal channels to get it. I had sometimes in the clinic, some years where I was really there, like committed to trying to, stay clean and taper off of it and do whatever. And then I had other times where I wasn't. And I will also say that every time that I tried to taper off of it, it was not successful for me. Not that everybody needs to taper off of it. But a lot of that was also on me, and it was on the stuff that I was doing, and it was on the situations that I was putting myself into. And so I do think it's a viable medication. And I think that, it can be very beneficial for people. But I'm going to throw a but in here. So here's my but with all that. I also think, because I got put on it when I was like 22. Mm-hmm. And I'm 29 now. And so, I also think that if you're that young, right? Like I have friends who are still really close friends to this day, like people that I've known for 5, 6, 7 years that I met in the clinics who are, in their 40s or their 50s. And, a lot of them they have like these beautiful lives now that they've been able to sort of build for themselves well on methadone and stuff like that. But the one thing a lot of those people always told me is like, hey, you're 22. Like you should maybe think about like your body's still healthy enough. Like you still have enough time ahead of you. Like maybe you might want to try to taper off at some point, like not immediately. So that's kind of my one thing. And I have kind of carried that with me is I do think that, if you're younger and, you know, it's possible that you don't have to be dependent on this stuff, and you might be able to move forward without it, then, you know, maybe when you're ready, of course, give it a try.
My husband got on methadone pretty young too. Like,
Yeah.
How old were you when you got on methadone? 20s?
Oh, me?
Yeah.
Yeah, like late 20s.
Yeah, like he was in his later 20s though. But it was because he got started on opioids at such a young age from an injury.
Yeah.
And so I tell people the same thing, like even with Suboxone, like if you're 20 years old, like you have your whole life ahead of you, you can get stabilized in your recovery and then slowly taper off of medication assisted treatment and leave this shit in the past. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Leave
Yes.
it behind you. I totally agree.
Yes.
I feel like a lot of people, I feel like sometimes doctors are afraid and they start people out when maybe that person just really needed to be in a long-term program where they were like in treatment for 6 months. Do you know what I mean? But it's hard because it's so many people have different circumstances, and I imagine like a lot of people come in and they're young and maybe they're not willing to go to a treatment center. Maybe they're like, fuck you, doctor, I'm not going nowhere. And so then the doctor's like, well, I don't want this person to die. I want them to live. And so then that's why they get started out at such a young age. I didn't get started on any kind of MAT until I was in my 30s. And I was running and gunning, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Till 30. So that would be the ideal thing though, would be for if you're really young to give yourself a chance to be able to take nothing. You know what I mean?
That's kind of where I'm coming from with it.
Yeah.
And I sometimes I have a hard time explaining that, because I worry, like, especially with TikTok, the format is so short. Like you basically have, you know, like, let's be real, you can make a 10-minute video, but ain't nobody watching that. So you got like 3 minutes to say something. And so sometimes when I try to say that, I think that, like, you know, you'll get the comments that are like, hey, you know, why would you say that or whatever? But like, that's where I'm really coming from with that, is I think that if you, and it doesn't, I'm not just if you're in your 20s, but like if you feel healthy and you feel strong and you feel better and you feel like confident in your recovery, like, you know, if you're ready to do something like that and taper, then you should give it a try. You know what I mean? And I also think that it gets a bad rap because a lot of people think that you have to stay on it for the rest of your life, and you don't. But if you need to, then you can, which is actually that's like actually a beautiful thing about it. If you need to, you can. And if you don't want to, you don't have to, you know?
I agree. So how did you end up getting on Suboxone? Tell us about how you transitioned to Suboxone and what happened.
Okay. I'm going to say, before I even talk about this is the most boneheaded, just absolute, don't ever do anything like this before.
Tell us the tea, Sean. Tell us the tea.
Okay. So, like I said, methadone clinics, Portland, 5 or 6 years. And I did try a lot and actually I should give a little backstory. So in Portland at the methadone clinics that I went to, it was nearly impossible for you to obtain take homes. Even people who had been there for 10 years. Like I had a really, really good friend named Kristen, not my fiance Kristen, but a different Kristen, who, you know, she had been going to the clinic that I was going to for like 10 years and she could not get takeouts. And the reason for that is because they're very specific. Like, oh, if you take this medication, no takeouts. If you use cannabis, no takeouts. If you miss this group, no takeouts. And it's not like they take one takeout from you, you go back down to 0, and then you have to try to work your way back up to the 7 days thing. So anyways, after going through that for 5 or 6 years of having to report to this clinic every single morning, and other than Sunday, because the clinic was closed on Sunday, eventually I was like, okay, I've got to try to taper off of this, because this is, you know, messing with my ability to work, like this messing with my job, all this stuff. So I go to the doctor and I'm like, hey man, I got a taper. And I did this probably like 5 or 6 times where I went to him and I said, I got a taper. I go down, I get sick, I go back up, I go down, I get sick, go back up. So I was having all these issues. So you know what I did? And again, nobody do this. This is the most boneheaded, nonsensical thing you could possibly do. But eventually, once I got down to, I believe it was like 60 milligrams, and I kept going down to 40 and then like feeling like trash and then going back up. So once I got down to 60 for the last time, I was like, all right, I'm going down to California. I'm locking myself in my grandmother's basement and I'm going through this cold turkey. I'm not going to tell you how I dealt with the cold turkey because that's also super boneheaded of what I did. But that's basically how it happened. And after about a month, I got on Suboxone and went to a Suboxone program called Ideal Options, which is like a chain up here in the Northwest. And that was
I know them.
Yeah. That was like one of the best things I ever did. They got me straightened out. I was, withdrawing off of more than just methadone at that point, and they got me straightened out, and it was great.
I saw a video you did in a response to somebody's comment about taking a short-acting opioid during a Suboxone. Was it for a Suboxone withdrawal or meth? I don't remember. But, that kind of makes sense. Like if you're going through withdrawal from subs or something and you're really sick and you are going to get on to another medication-assisted treatment like methadone or something, fill in the gap with like a shorter acting opioid. But here's the thing, like, bitch, I ain't never going to stop filling the gap. I'm going to be taking those short acting opioids and never go back to the one I'm supposed to go back to.
That's where I'm at. That's all I was trying to say,
Yeah.
Like I feel like, again, this is like with TikTok, it's hard because you really do, like when you do those response videos, you've got a minute, and like as most of you or anybody listening to this can probably tell, I can't do shit in a minute. I talk like, when I explain something, it's like all over the fucking place. So, I can't really get across what I was trying to say in that video, but what I was trying to say isn't that that's not like possible or that doesn't make, all of this stuff is biohacking. So like all of this stuff is you're basically taking like one medication that's causing you an issue, and then you're trying to hack that issue with another medication that potentially has other issues, but maybe lesser issues. And when I say issues, I'm talking about side effects. So these things are biohacking. And to me, when I think about, and this is just me personally, when I think about if you have opioid use disorder and you go to your doctor and you say, hey, I'm having a real hard time with these Suboxone withdrawals, how about a Vicodin script? Like for me, I'm taking, I just know.
For me, that's not going to happen.
That can't
no
happen
doctor
for
that's
me.
going to give me a prescription for
Me
Vicodin
neither.
or hydrocodone.
Oh, me neither. I got the reddest flags.
You know what I'm saying?
Oh, I know
And
exactly
so,
what you're saying.
I don't know how they're not going to give that to me. But let's say that they did. I'm going to take the whole prescription in a day.
Me too.
Like, simple. That's all. We're done with that now. You know
That's
what I mean?
exactly, yeah, that's me too.
Now, nowadays, now that I have been sober for a really long time and I've been on Suboxone for a really long time, I think that if I was going through withdrawal from subs and I wanted to ease my withdrawal and, and I could obtain a shorter acting opioid like that, I would probably have like my husband hold it and give it to me or something like that to help me if I was really focused and dead set on getting off Suboxone.
Yes.
But like, it's not that serious to me. Like I'm on a little piece of Suboxone. I'm off of all the other medications I'm on. I'm living fucking life over here. I'm feeling great. I'm feeling better than I ever felt. You know what I mean? So to me, it's like the risk of me relapsing on like an opiate or something like that just to get off of something else that I'm on is not worth it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm the same way. And what's funny is that like you and I think identical, I think, on this. And what's funny is that you mentioned that your husband would hold it for you. So I'm lucky because Kristen, she's never been an addict. And for anybody watching, Kristen is my fiance, and she's never been a user. And so we do this. She actually, I don't go to my own doctor's appointments because I just well, I mean, I do go, but I don't go to them by myself. She comes with me to my doctor's appointments because like there's been, I'll just give an example of the past year or 2 years. There has been one instance where I was like super stressed out at work, just crazy every day, just like working 60-hour weeks, grinding my face into the ground, and I couldn't sleep at all for like a month, and I was really starting to lose it. And so my doctor prescribed me Zolpidem, which is Ambien, and she was like real nervous about this. Like the doctor had to convince her, like, no, just like let it, like, you know, take this prescription. Let him, if he can't sleep, take one, maybe like, you know, one pill like twice a week or something, just so that you're not going like 5 days straight without sleeping. Cause you're gonna like, he basically told me I should quit my job first. But then when I said no, he was like, okay, then let's do this.
I told him the same thing, y'all. I told him to quit his job too.
She did. It's true. And I did, which has been actually probably one of the best decisions I've made in the past 5 years.
You can do so much better than that job anyway. I'm going to let you finish the story, but then I want you to tell everybody about your job and how you were doing and everything that got you to where you were all stressed.
Okay. Yeah. So anyways, the ending to that story is basically just, you know, I'm lucky to have a partner who can manage medications that I am prescribed, especially for rare circumstances, and also who sits there in the doctor's office and makes sure that they don't forget about the little red flag that's right next to my name every time they look in the my chart. But yeah, so my job, I managed. Well, I opened a store for the owner of a company, and I managed this store, and I developed all the policies and procedures. I wrote all of our SOPs, and basically what we sold is, because I live in the Northwest in Oregon, and out here like hiking, biking, fishing, you know, kayaking, basically anything outdoors, skiing, snowboarding, all that stuff is extremely popular. And so we sold all of those products, and that's what I did for the past year and a half. And we did
a cool place though. That's a cool job, you would think, but like the response, I'm gonna let you get into that, but that's a cool kind of like here in Arkansas we have, what is it called? Not North Face, but they like carry all those kind of things, like all the North Face
REI
outfits, Chacos, just all that outdoorsy shit.
Yep.
I can't remember what the damn chain is called, but it's fucking cool as hell. Go ahead.
Is it REI?
No. I cannot remember what the damn name of the store is for the life of me. When I remember, I'll tell you. But they have all the best stuff. You know what I mean? Like the nicest. They got fucking Birkenstocks there. They just got everything that is trendy and cool for like outdoorsy stuff. You know?
Yep.
I would have never been able to save money working there. I would be literally spending my whole check there.
Oh, you should see our closets. They're pretty obliterated with just that kind of stuff. And I'm going to be honest, I'm not even, so I like those activities, but I'm not into like all the clothes, like the Patagonia, the Arc'teryx and all this stuff. I have all this stuff, but it's not my thing. But anyways, so yeah, the business did really well. We did really well, and the company is still doing really well. I actually just talked to my old boss, the owner of the company, yesterday. They're doing great. You know, so no hard feelings. They were a great company to work for, but it was just that in order to get that thing off the ground and then sail it straight, it was a lot of work. So yeah, that's what I did for work, and that's why I couldn't sleep. So,
but what about you? What mistakes did you make in the job where that? Because here's the thing, like, to me, you're like a people pleaser, and I could see you telling your boss, "Oh yeah, I can work that day," when you actually needed that day off because it's your only day off in a week. So what happened that what did you? Because it's our fault. We do it ourselves. So tell everybody what you struggle with, because that's what I want people to understand.
Yeah. Well, first thing I'm going to say is that for anybody watching this, Nicole can read people super well. So that's the first thing I'm going to say, because there are things that I've known about myself for maybe, you know, since I've gotten sober, and Nicole figured them out in like 10 minutes. And one of those things is, I am a huge people pleaser. I like to try to make I like to try to satisfy everybody around me, if that makes sense. And what I'm kind of learning, and, I think that as I get older, I get a little bit better at this, but it's still a part of my personality. But what I'm kind of learning is that is impossible. You can't satisfy everybody around you. But for whatever reason, I still try. And so a lot of the mistakes that I made, even getting myself that deep into, because I'm not going to lie to y'all, I was like, I talked about the sleeping problems, but I was really, really in bad shape, mentally, physically, just everything for a little bit there, for especially like the last 6 months that I was working there. And again, I want to say, like, it wasn't anything on the company, but it was me. I was going out of my way, not just for my staff. I was going out of my way for the owner. I was going out of my way for everyone in the community who we did business with. I was coming home, not setting my phone down, and continuing to stay on Slack. If any of you guys know what Slack is, it basically turns your personal phone into a work phone.
Yeah. I have it for my job too.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'd be just nonstop answering everybody. My staff knew that they only got away with this for so long, but a lot of my staff knew, like, that if they couldn't come in, that I would be there regardless of whether or not I wanted to be. And no matter how good of an employee somebody is, if you kind of set that precedent that, like, hey, if you don't do your job, I will.
I'm going to do your job for you.
Yeah. And
the reason why I know this about you is because me and my husband were the same way when in our roles because we were both upper management also. And it's so easy to be doing so well in your sobriety and get promoted or get a job position like this. And you're like, I want to blow this out of the park. I want to make this, because they're going to be successful and they're going to know because they had me helping them that this motherfucker ain't going down. You know what I mean?
Yes,
and
that's exactly it.
It's like you go to the, I don't know if it's because we feel like we need to prove ourselves because we have struggled for so long. And I believe that's what a lot has to do with me is I was such a bad employee for so long and I hurt so many people that I almost feel like I owe it to do better, to do these things, I don't know if you feel like that, but that's what I do a lot is I'll feel like almost like it's an obligation. I feel like I owe it to myself and to these people to do the best that I can do. And I end up fucking myself off in the long run.
That's exactly how I feel. And I think that a lot of it's like a chip on my shoulder. And a lot of it is the amount of negative energy that I put out into the universe for so many years. And I think that I feel some sort of moral obligation to be as juxtaposed to that as I possibly can be. And what I forget in that, and what that does is it's actually dangerous because it makes me attempt to be a perfectionist when I am anything but. And so I end up holding myself to this standard that I can't possibly maintain. I mean, just my personal history and just who I am, that's not possible for me to maintain that. Yet I'm holding myself to this standard that, well, if you don't maintain this, then you're letting everyone and yourself down. And that, yeah.
Which I have to point something out. You made a video the other day and you left 2 intros in it by accident.
I did.
And that fucking video still did good, motherfucker.
It did.
It still did good. And
Did
it
you
wasn't
see?
perfect. And you made a mistake. And it didn't fucking end the world, did it?
You know how I felt when I figured it out, though?
I know you. I knew you were going to be kicking yourself in the ass. But I was like, I was so excited to see that the video did good still, because it's like you put so much pressure on yourself to be so perfect about everything. And you are just, I just want to make everybody know this. Like, you are so great at you do a great job. Your content is bomb. People are coming in and saying that they found you from that Lima content, just so you know.
Oh,
They're
really?
like, I love Sean's
good.
content. I found him from his video about Lima. And so
Excellent. I'm stoked on that.
People, they are not there because their content is perfect or because the lighting is good. They're there to hear what you have to say, and you got to learn more. You got to learn that and be more good to yourself because you're doing a really great job. And I just wanted him to share that with you guys because, like, I know a lot of you guys are the same way that I am and the same way Sean is, where you feel like so much guilt and shame, and then you try to make up for it in your everyday life, in your job, with your family members. And, I just want everybody to know that you can only do so much. Don't beat yourself down and don't hold yourself to such a high standard that you can't even reach the standard, right? It's like,
Yeah.
so unhealthy for you because then you're thinking, then you think you're failing all the time, and you're not failing. You have set the bar to a standard that nobody could reach, not even the president of the United States. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And, I think that, like, honestly, I'll be frank. Some of the conversations that you and I have had, I feel like some of the best content that I've made has been after our talks. Because when I talk to you, you kind of like reaffirm for me that, I need to kind of take a chill pill, slow down, not be judging my whatever I choose to make through the lens of, it's got to be good, it's got to be perfect, it has to be this. And I find that it limits me, especially when I'm trying to be creative. Because if I'm trying to be creative and I'm sitting there and I'm saying, oh, well, it's got to be perfect and I want it to be like this and I want it to be like that, it really just stifles your creativity because you're not going to be organic. You're going to sit there and try and almost be like robotic about things or too meticulous, and you might end up removing portions that were really just you being you. And I think ultimately at the end of the day, like, we're force fed. So, I mean, if you want to look at it that way, we're force fed so many things that are kind of like not organic. We're force fed so many things that are like kind of scripted or meant to like make you feel this way or feel that way. And so I feel like people are starting to resonate a lot more with content that really is just organic. Like, they can tell that you're just being yourself. Like, it's not super produced. It's not super put together. Not that having your content be put together is like a knock, but I just mean like when you're talking yourself or when you're sharing your thoughts, like being kind of
especially talking about recovery and stuff.
Yeah.
Like, look at what's going on with AI.
Yeah.
There are literally going to be AI versions of everybody. And, like, I'm sorry, but I would rather jump on and hear Sean and Nicole talking from their heart than to see two versions of them. Hello, I'm Nicole and I'm in recovery. What? No, thank you. I'd rather not. No.
No.
So I can't handle that shit. My boss keeps on cloning himself on the video.
Dr. B?
No, not Dr. B. Austin. Oh my gosh. You know what? I don't even think we did do one with Dr. B. We posted a clone of Dr. B on TikTok, and it was crazy. It looks just like him, sounds just like him, but you can still tell it's not the real person,
right.
And so I'd rather sit on here and talk about like our struggles and be honest and just be real about it. People are going through the same thing that we're going through, Yeah. So now that you have shared with us about your struggles and some things that you were struggling with before, tell us how you got to a good place where you could use Suboxone in a therapeutic way. And then what you're doing now, because I know that you were ignoring my phone call, so I had to send you a picture of myself flipping you the bird because you were on a bachelor party. I didn't know that.
Yeah, I was. And it was hysterical to me when I opened that, because it's so Nicole. Like, I just opened up my phone and it's like, why aren't you answering me, MFer? And then there's just a picture of you like flipping me off. And it was actually, I was out with some friends and opening that was, it just like, I started laughing hysterically just out of nowhere. And everybody's like, what the hell are you laughing at? So yeah, I'm getting married.
I was getting worried about you. I thought you had relapsed or something.
No.
Because you never not answer like that. And I was like, sorry, I'm crying, but in a good way. I was like, is he okay? So I was like, this is my last chance. And I was literally just like that, y'all. I was sitting here in my bed and I go,
It was a funny picture. It was definitely a funny picture. And so I'm getting married in September. And so I was doing a little like mini sober bachelor party with my fiance's brother and her dad and her mom. And I've known all these guys for 10 years. Kristen, who is my fiance now, she'll be my wife in September, which I can't even believe. I'm just so lucky that that's even the case. But I've known her since I was 19 and she was 16. So I've known her whole family for years and years. Her brother was my roommate when I was in college. Well, we were in college, but we didn't go to class very much. But yeah, so I had a little mini sober bachelor party this past weekend, and it was pretty awesome.
Yeah. Okay, I'm sorry. I was like trying to unmute myself. I get a little concerned when I text people and they don't answer after a couple times. And that's why I was concerned. And also because I know you normally will at least text back and say, oh, I'm doing XYZ. So that's why I was like, oh my gosh, I hope he's okay. But I'm so excited for you because let me tell y'all something, okay? When me and Neil got married, I was so afraid to do it. I waited extra long time because I was afraid because I had never married anybody before, so duh. And so it's a big decision for a woman. Has she ever been married before or no?
No, she hasn't.
It's a big decision to marry for us girls.
Oh, yeah.
And it's really scary. Even if we're in love with you and we know that we're in love with you, we know you're our best friend. Baby, I was scared till the fucking second that I said I do. And listen to how stupid it was. We didn't have like a wedding because we are poor. So we went to the Justice of the Peace. And this little old man, the Justice of the Peace, said, you can come to my apartment. I'll marry you there. And we're like, okay. We show up in his apartment, you guys. He's smoking like a Virginia Slim 1000. It's as long as his fucking, and it stinks. Like it stunk like cigarettes so bad. And it was like, so the walls were yellow. That's how much this little old man smoked, y'all.
Yeah.
I'm sitting there and I'm like, I do. You know what I mean? Like trying to take our vows. How fucking romantic. But even up until the last minute of us doing that, I was so afraid. Because I had these thoughts going in my mind. What if he doesn't stay sober? What if this? What if that? But now we've been married since 2019. We got married in February of 2019. And so it was the best decision I keep muting myself. I tell you this to tell you that it was the best decision I ever made. Like my husband's my best friend. He's my ride or die. And it sounds like that's what your wife is for you.
Yes.
Kristen is for you. She's your stability. She's your support system. She holds you accountable. She helps you stay on track. That's a great relationship,
Yeah. She is like you were kind of talking about how hard it is for for a woman to get married and like what goes into like thinking about that. And what I can say, at least from my perspective, is I had to clean my shit way up before she was hitching herself to me for, eternity. Like we've known each other since we were kids, and I think I talked about this a little earlier on. But she doesn't come from, any kind of addiction background. She's never been on the streets. She isn't a substance abuser. She does have that in her family though. And that's kind of one of the reasons why she does what she does for work now. But yeah, for years, like you talked about loving somebody and still not being sure. And it's like, that's where we were at. And I think that she was doing that for a good reason. Cause like we just talked about, I had a lot of addiction issues. It took me a long time to really figure it out. And this kind of segues back into your question about how I was finally able to figure out how to use Suboxone properly and get to the spot that I'm at now. But she really watched me go through every single one of my phases when it came to my addiction and everything, all the way up until now, obviously. And I got lucky that last July, she was like, you know what? I like what I'm seeing. We're good to go. And I was like,
That's
all right,
awesome.
We're good to go. So, yeah.
Oh, that makes me sad. And that makes me not sad. It makes me happy, but like kind of emotional, because I bet you probably thought nobody will ever want to marry me. I'll never be good enough. You know what I mean? I felt the same way. And so when you find that certain somebody who sees past your addiction and sees you for the person that you really are inside, whew, girl, guy, it makes you just want to. I get emotional just thinking about, even though me and Neil are both drug addicts, he was like, came from the kind of family that your wife came from.
Yeah.
Like they're really to do. They're not rich, but they're good. They're well off, And I was just like, oh my gosh, I don't fit in. I'm not good enough,
Yep.
but we are good enough. We tell ourselves that we're not good enough. And just because we use substances, like just because a person uses drugs doesn't mean that they're not a valuable human being. Do you know how many people use drugs that are fucking like fucking presidents, CEOs, fucking scientists?
Oh yeah. Oh
you
yeah.
know?
I wasn't capable, for whatever reason, my brain wasn't capable of like understanding that or like wrapping my mind around that fact until I was older and kind of getting sober. And I think that, a lot of people do these things and aren't open about it, and rightfully so, because they might be ostracized, it might be ridiculed or lose their positions, especially if they have a type of job that definitely requires sobriety. So they're not going to come out and talk about it, but you start to realize it when you get a little older. And I actually have a question for you, because one of the things that I kind of catch myself doing every now and then is I will catch myself almost like expecting, like in this, I know we already talked about, like sometimes I'll set the standards super high because I want to sort of like do right because of the wrong that I've done. But sometimes I will catch myself if I like don't want to do something, or if I'm like, maybe around some people who I just like I get this feeling like, oh, they're better than me. I will intentionally like out myself so that I don't have to be taken as seriously. Do you ever go through anything like that? I don't know if that's the best way.
Like outing myself as an addict?
Yeah, almost. Or like I will, like, if it's somebody that's like maybe expecting something of me, I'll almost like use that as like a prerequisite, like, hey, don't expect as much from me. I think I was doing that earlier on.
Subconsciously, when I first started going around my son started kindergarten at this really nice school that he's gone to since kindergarten. He's in 4th grade this year. And it's like a really nice school with like, it's a rich neighborhood. The surrounding houses are like really upper class, rich West Little Rock people. And when I was meeting all the moms and stuff, I feel like I subconsciously kind of put myself out there and let people know that I was in recovery from addiction. I don't know if I was doing it because I didn't want, I don't know, because I didn't feel it like I felt like I didn't fit in with these people. You know what I'm saying? And it was like, I might as well just go ahead and be like this. And so maybe they won't fucking want to hang out with me, because these people are not my type of people.
Yes, this is what I'm talking about. Yeah, you said it better than I did, but that's exactly what I'm talking about. And I try to catch myself doing that, because I found, like, especially early on, like 3 years ago, I would do that unnecessarily all the time. And it actually took a boss that I had at a job before my most recent job to be like, hey, like, I'm going to tell you this. I've never told anybody this, but I also did the same thing. Like, and he like, pulled a Suboxone wrapper out of his wallet and all this stuff. And he's like, you need to just, like, you don't have to like try to dumb yourself down. Like, you are worthy. And he told me that. And I was like, oh, okay.
I felt like these people wouldn't accept me anyway. So I wanted to beat them to the point.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
It. Yes. You're beating them to the punch. Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And you know what? In the long run, I was right. It was probably by the time Nate was in 3rd grade and I was 2nd or 3rd grade, I was at the car pickup line, and I always walk up to pick him up, and I was standing under the overhang. And 3 of the white ladies that were the part of the crew I was talking about, they were holding this infant, black baby. Okay. Mm-hmm. And it was so cute. And I walked over, I was like, oh, is that like one of your grandkids or somebody in your family's son? And she was like, oh no, I'm this baby's foster parent. It got taken from he got taken from its mother because she was on meth and she'll never get him back. And I said, oh, really? Because my son got taken from me because I was on meth.
Oh, I know.
I'm picking him up from school today.
I know. Yeah. You
and
actually said
like,
that?
Huh?
You actually said that to her?
Hell yeah, I did.
Hell yeah, dude.
Hell yeah, I did. I said, really? Because my son got taken away from me too. And I got my custody of my son back. And you should have seen the color leave from these 3 women's faces. They were like, oh, fuck. And I was like, you shouldn't count her out. That's a brand new newborn baby.
No.
Like, she can fight for her kid still. And I didn't even know whose kid it was, who the girl was, or nothing. But just the fact that she was like, oh, her kid got taken from her this baby got taken away from its mother for meth addiction. She'll never see this baby again. I was like, oh, bitch, you got something coming. And it was like, they were so proud to be like saving this little black baby. You know what I mean? It had nothing to do with like being a good foster parent or loving that baby no matter what. It was all about like power and control. And I was like, I had those feelings just being around them when I first came into that school district with my son. But I was like, I'm just going to say to myself, and like I said, I kind of outed myself as being in recovery because all the moms were inviting me to these gatherings where they were drinking, watching their kids and drinking wine and stuff like that. And I was just like, that's not my deal. I don't do that, So I let them know I was in recovery. And then I didn't really have to do all those things anymore, Yeah. But it was like everything that I thought was right about what I felt, And it was like, these are not the kind of people that I even want my son to hang out with their kids, because I want my son to grow up having empathy and care for people and respect and kind. And that's what he's a kind kid. He's not the kind of kid that judges you because your mom does drugs or your granddaddy is old and poor or whatever,
Yeah. I think that it's sad to me that more people haven't caught on yet that, especially now more than ever, people are capable of change. There's tools out there. There's things that we have now that have, much higher success rate than the previous tools that we had at our disposal in recovery. And I know a lot of people, including you, who have been able to turn, and including me, who have been able to turn their lives around and, live a lifestyle that is just about as 100% 180 opposite from the lifestyle that they were living before as you can possibly get. And I think that, because like we had talked about before, my mother had lost me when I was young to the courts. And, my mom, I watched her she wasn't able to get things back together. She wasn't able to get things back together when I was young. But by the time I was about 16, which, I had already been living with my grandma for all that time. And so I wasn't about to move across the country to where my mom lived. My mom did get her things in order and actually had my half brother and raised him, and he's 20 now and he's doing great. He's in college. And so, I've seen it firsthand. And I think that just to kind of tie it all back, I think that when I get scared that somebody's going to judge me when they find something out about me, or I think that they're going to be able to like smell it on me almost that, I've lived on the streets, or they're going to be able to smell it on me that I'm a little bit different than them. I think that I almost go right to, well, I'm just gonna out myself right now, and then I take that power from them a little bit. I think
that's how I look at it too, is taking their power away. But I'll tell you this, Sean, you are. I've said this to him a million times. I almost feel like a creeper for saying it, but like you're not. It doesn't. When I look at you, I don't say, "Oh, that's a junkie right there." Oh, I know he used to be homeless. Like you look like a businessman. Okay, put a little tie on you and put you in a little suit and put you out the door. And you look like a little New York businessman with a little briefcase. So, and I know I'm the same way to myself. So I'm not trying
Yeah.
to beat you down for being that way to yourself, because I feel like people just know also about me. But the thing about it is, like, I am so proud to be where I'm at today that I don't give a fuck what they think. I will tell everybody that I walk past that I lost my son, custody of my son, and I got him back. You know what I mean? Because I worked hard. And so we can't let people shame us because of our pasts. You know what I mean? I think that a lot of us were brainwashed, and I hate to say this, I know a lot about if you all get upset with me, but the treatment industry in AA brainwashed a lot of us to believe that we were less than because we used substances, and that we were not good enough, and that we are diseased, and that we are powerless, and we're not. Like, we have more power than you can ever imagine. If I can have syringes in my house and shoot my dog up with insulin every day, bitch, I can do anything. Okay? Like, for real.
No, that's a fact. And I also want to touch on that and say, like, I 100% agree with that. And when we say this stuff, that doesn't mean, I think people take that as like an attack on AA and NA and its viability. Just because those programs aren't viable for us, or because we might be able to see some things in it that we don't agree with, it doesn't mean that it's not a viable solution or a viable option for somebody else. I personally just disagree with the idea that I'm powerless over these things. And the reason for that is because if I was truly powerless, then I wouldn't be sitting here, because I have been powerless in the past. But what I think that the 12-step book leaves out is that you can become, you can gain that power back down the line.
Absolutely.
That's not written in there. It doesn't mean that I think that I have power over the drugs entirely, where I think that I could use them and I would be just A-okay. But I just think that more context is needed there. I still would never, of course, think that, I can just use a little bit and I'm cured. No, of course.
Do you know what happened to me? I fucking almost went out and used. I almost used. About 4, 5, 6 months ago, I was following a program I was following some people on TikTok, and we have to end this at 5:45, so we have 15 minutes. But
Okay.
We're going to do another part because we just like to talk, y'all. So just deal with it, okay?
Sorry,
I got
y'all.
to tell you what happened, because I got to take Nate to the school thing. But listen, I met this program, these people called the Freedom Model on TikTok. A lot of what they talk about and the way they were opening their videos was any person can use in moderation. An addict can use in moderation. That you're not powerless. And I saw these videos. So I started listening to only these videos and really just like feeding myself this rhetoric that I could use in moderation and overcome my addiction, right? And I was looking for help with ADHD, and none of my doctors wanted to help me with medication because the medications I was on would interact with medications and So I couldn't get like not Strattera. I couldn't get on Adderall. I couldn't get on Ritalin or Concerta, like 4 things. And I was really getting discouraged. So I had come in my mind and I was like, I can use moderation. I can use methamphetamine in moderation. And so I was like going to microdose methamphetamine to treat ADHD. And before I decided to make the big jump to go and try to purchase this methamphetamine, God knows where I was going to get it, I called Dr. B and I was like, I had this idea and I want to run it by you before I do it. And he was like, no. I am so glad that you called me, Nicole, because listen. And he sat down and we talked for like 2 hours, 3 hours almost. I was crying. And it was because I felt so desperate at that time that I was searching for anything that would help me. And this thing flew into my radar of moderation. And it was like, dude, I was off to the races with the idea and everything. And I could have almost relapsed.
Yep. I know about this. There was a guest on a podcast that I watched probably about 2 years ago. He wrote, I forget what his name is. I've been trying to think of his name now since you brought that up. But he wrote a book that was essentially about how he thought that he was an alcoholic, but he actually was not. He just needed to learn how to develop a healthy relationship. What's that?
Cody?
That sounds right. That
from
sounds
TikTok?
Right. Oh, no. So this was like this guy was on like a big podcast, and he was
Okay.
pitching this book, and his whole premise was, and it sounded appealing to me at first too. I remember it totally piqued my interest. I was barely listening to this podcast with these two, and then once I heard him talk about this, it just totally piqued my interest. But basically what he was saying is that he wasn't an alcoholic. It took him a long time to figure this out. What he really needed to do was learn how to develop a healthy relationship with alcohol where he could use it in moderation. And at first this was making sense to me, and I was thinking, oh, like, yeah, that makes total sense. But this is where I think this kind of becomes a falsehood. And that is that if you're somebody who's already struggled with addiction, how many times do you have to prove to yourself that you can't have a healthy relationship with it? How many times do you have to prove to yourself that you can't use in moderation? And again, like, this kind of goes back to that whole powerless thing. I don't believe that I'm powerless over these substances because I took my power back from them. But that doesn't mean that I don't respect the magnitude of what they can bring into my life and just how destructive they can be. So for me, I totally see why that's appealing, because I thought when I was listening to that podcast, I was like, oh yeah, wow, that makes sense. Like, I just need to develop a healthy relationship. But for me, I don't think that I can.
The only reason why I do stimulants is to get jacked. Yeah. Bitch, I ain't trying to just take a little Adderall to fucking focus. I'm trying to be zipping and zoodon all around. I'm trying to be bouncing from the walls, pinball machine style, bitch. Yeah. Okay? I'm trying to not sleep for 3 days and hallucinate on the 4th. Okay? Yeah. Like, when I drink alcohol, I don't drink to just like have a little sip socially. I'm trying to get zooted. I'm trying to be fucking out cold, ho. Yeah. I'm trying to fuck somebody and have goggles on and not know who they are.
Exactly. I'm trying to get out of my own head. And people are listening. Anybody who's listening to this, if you're not, a user yourself, like, that might sound fucking crazy to you. You hear that and you're like, what? Like, you want to do meth for fun? Look, all I'm going to say is there is a reason why so many people lose their lives to these substances. And if they were terrible and they just felt like shit and they just felt miserable, nobody would be losing their lives to these things.
Right.
They are powerful. They are alluring. They produce more dopamine than the best meal you've ever had, than the best sex you've ever had. They produce more dopamine than you buying your first house. I mean, it's like, it doesn't matter what it is. And that's what makes people give their lives up for these things. And so it sounds silly, but it's true. It's true. And so
that's why we can't try in moderation.
Exactly.
Because there's the goal for me when in taking in substances is to feel the ultimate feeling from that substance.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Because you're searching for something there's something almost spiritual about it. You're searching for something that's going to either, get you out of your own head or give your life meaning at that moment in time, or, make you come out of your depression. I mean, these are all things that, like, having a spiritual experience can do for you, or having something profound happening in your life, like, having your first child. But you can like hardwire your brain. It goes back to like this biohacking thing to just make you feel that immediately. And imagine trying to stop that. Imagine trying to, know that you have these great feelings at your disposal, and it'll just make everything okay if you do it, or at least it will for a couple hours, and then it'll potentially ruin your life if you're like me or like Nicole. But, imagine trying to, kind of come out of that and stop it. It's very difficult. So moderation seems not in the cards for me.
Not me either.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm pissed off because so the next video I want to do with you is going to be a part 3 now. The next video I want us to solely talk about how you got to a good place with Suboxone. I want you to talk about your fitness journey because you've been doing that. I want you to talk about you and your wife's journey. Maybe she can even come on too with you.
Yeah.
Where if she wants to, she doesn't have to, but where maybe she could. Okay, cool. Where she could chime in and share about how she's helped you with your recovery, with like the doctor's office thing. Like, a lot of people can relate to that. Like, me and my husband, we help each other. We can relate to that kind of shit. You know what I mean? Like, I have to push Neil to go to the doctor to get his testosterone shit checked so he won't be depressed. I have to make him. Like, it's literally a pulling teeth out of his head because he doesn't want to go. He hates the doctor, you know? But that's how we help each other, is by, like, what I suck at, he's good at. And what I'm good at, he sucks at. So we balance each other out. You know what I mean?
Same. That's
okay.
Same in our
So,
relationship.
That's what I want to have you on for next. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take Nate to school and meet his teacher. And when I get home, I'll text you and we'll just schedule the next live for whenever you want to do it next. So that way we can get it up fast. Because I don't want people, I want it to be the next video in line. So either anytime this weekend or before Thursday. Okay.
Okay. Perfect. Shoot me a text. I'll get back to you quick.
We've been linking your channel, and Sean has had some success in the last couple days because he's been sharing about the Bam Margera, Lima, Takali, the twins, the BJ Investigate stuff. So if you guys are, y'all know I'm into that shit. So if you guys want to hear his thoughts on what Lima's been doing over there, go hit his channel up. We've been linking it in the comment section, and leave him your thoughts so he'll know what to react to next. My thoughts for you next, Sean, I would like to see you pull in Amanda Rabb's story from Soft White Underbelly. And I would like for you to talk about how her going on that channel, we all thought it was going to be like this amazing thing that was going to help her, but I actually feel like her going on that channel was her fucking demise.
Yep. I feel the same way. And that whole situation still to me, like, gives me the heebie-jeebies. And I always worry, like, talking about it, because we're talking about these very powerful people who have a lot of influence and have the ability to, sue, or they have the ability to take your stuff down. And also they have large audiences. So I did make a video on Mark a while back, and I ended up pulling it down because just so many people kind of just attacked me.
Really?
Oh, yeah. This was like probably like 7 months ago when I first it was like one of my like third videos or something like that.
I don't know how I feel about his content anymore. I used to like it.
I did
but
too.
I don't know if I support it anymore. I feel like, I don't know. I don't like how he talks to a lot of the guests in the interviews, especially women, sex workers.
Yep.
I think that he's weird.
Learning more about these people and their backgrounds is what I think has enlightened me to kind of who they are and what they're actually about. And so, it does freak me out a little bit. I will say that I've got a video hopefully coming out. I'm hoping by Saturday. And this one, I hope people will find it interesting. It's actually somebody very similar to Lima that I know you know well, Nicole. So I'll send you a text about it. But this one's
you better text me, motherfucker.
I will. I'll text you and I'll let you know who it's about. And this one is like me. I kind of gathered my own clips on this one, and this is going to be my first attempt at like somewhat doing what BJ does, but nowhere near as good, obviously, because I'm still so brand new. But this could be my own little attempt at that. So yeah.
Oh, now we're all interested. Okay, y'all go sub to Sean's channel. Don't miss it. Okay. All right, man. Text me whenever, or I'll text you right now. Text me back, okay? Love you.
All right.
Tell Kristen I love her too.
I will. We'll both come on next time. Thank you so much for having me on. I appreciate you.
You're
talk
welcome.
to you soon.
See you later, man.
Bye.
All right, you guys. I just love Sean. I love him. I love his wife. I've never met her, but I love her too. And I can't wait to meet her. So, okay, me and Sean, I'm going to hit him up. I feel like, so y'all have seen me with all my guests. I feel like me and Sean bounce off of each other pretty well when we're talking. And I've been trying to think of like, who could I do like a legit podcast with, who would like actually do the podcast with me and not flake out. And let me know what y'all think about me and Sean teaming up and doing like a monthly podcast where we drop a monthly podcast episode where we talk about on the internet, in the recovery community, and stuff like that. Let me know what y'all think about that, okay? Thank you, Tracy. I appreciate you, girl. Thank you so much. And that's what what I was going to tell you guys. I got to take Nate to school real fast to meet his teacher. But everybody, if you're a smaller creator, let's help each other, okay? I will share your content on my community tab. Tracy, I'll share your content on my community tab. You do the same for me. Brandon, tag me when you upload your videos. Let me know so that way I can share your videos on my community tab. Those are you guys that are in the recovery community that are making content. Let's help each other over here on YouTube and help each other by sharing each other's content out on the community tabs. Okay. I hope you guys enjoyed Sean. We were just touching base on what he's a little bit about his story and then what he's getting into now, and what we've been talking about his job and all that good stuff, because that's just, we have really good conversations when we do get on the phone and talk. And so I thought coming on here and sharing it with you guys would be beneficial to you, especially if you can relate to me and Sean's stories, you know. So next video we do together, me and Sean, it'll be shortly after this one. It'll be all about how he gained a healthy relationship with Suboxone and where he's at now in his sobriety and what he's doing to stay sober. So share this video out. Thanks for helping me, you guys. I love you guys. And I'm going to end this video right now. Okay? Okay. Bye, you guys.